welcome back to Forgiven AF Podcast. My name is Sean Surface. I'm your host. Remember, we run this as marketing material for our mentorship program, so it's kind of cool to just keep everyone updated on what's going on with the mentorship and just kind of bring some kind of motivational, content that points people to the Lord, and it's just something that I love to do. So thank you guys that listen to this and pay attention. It means a lot to me. I know I tell you guys this all the time. It's still very humbling to me that people take 20, 30 minutes out of their day to listen to me ramble and talk to you guys. So I'm very appreciative of it. I want to make sure, and I thank Trinity West Roofing and Construction for helping donate with the boys' shoes and helping us, pay some of the marketing fees and some of the things associated with this podcast that help us keep this going. If you could just in the iTunes link or the Spotify link, if you could just take 30 seconds and give us a quick review, that really helps us push the content out there. And I guess that's about it for now. So I'm really excited about this episode, man. So I got my buddy here, Jais Munoz, and it's really cool because when we were opening up this gym out here in Midlothian, he reached out to me, and we're going on a year. I'd say it's been about a year. He reached out to me just like on a random post or comment. I guess it probably came across his Instagram. And I think that we've talked all day, literally every day through comments, since, through the messages and Instagram since that first time. And y'all talk about motivation and talking about, one thing that's this friendship has formed for me is I realized that there's no room for really self-pity in my life. Like a lot of the things and I'm excited for him to share his story with you guys because there's nothing you can take from it but positive motivation. And even a closer relationship from the Lord. And I pray that that's what you guys get out of this because his story is so powerful, what he's overcome, and his mentality towards what he's overcome is just, it's so inspiring, man. And I don't know, I don't mean to go overboard and but it is inspiring, man, like what you've gone through. And I'm so excited for our listeners to get to hear this. So Jais, thank you very much for being here today. I don't want to go too much into your story, but let's start off kind of from when you were a kid. Can you kind of tell us how you grew up and where you're from and just kind of the basics of your family?
So I actually grew up for the most part in Plano. I mean, we lived all over the U.S. We moved with my dad to project management, construction, that kind of thing. So we lived in Plano. And then I'm actually a fourth-gen Midlothian resident. So in 99, we actually moved this way. And this was before this area got super busy and big. So
that's cool. So you've been here since it started, right? And I hear a lot of people from the gym here in our Midlothian location are always talking about how different it is now than when, they're like 287 had a red light or a stop sign or something. It's funny to hear that.
And it was 163 was 663. Yeah.
That's funny. So how did I know you said you grew up kind of in the church, so a relationship with the Lord was not new to you, and which is cool because you'll kind of hear why that's important as we get through this podcast a little bit. How did you grow up, family dynamics and church-wise?
Oh, so my family is super close and blessed, but sorry, the strokes. But with the church, I grew up going to Mother's Day out in daycare and school and stuff, and doing church every Wednesday and Sunday.
Yeah,
Bible study, that kind of stuff.
So you grew up in the church, which is cool. So you had a good foundation in God and kind of had a good understanding of that. I guess I could have started with this, and we're going to get into the podcast, and I don't mean this to as you'll see, Jais has actually had gone through some strokes, and it kind of affects. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I think he speaks great. But if you kind of see, if it's a little bit, I'm just not trying to cover for you or anything.
Fine.
I just want them to kind of understand, and there might be seconds here and there that he's got to recall what he's saying or whatever. But again, I'm really proud of you, dude.
Oh no, I majored in linguistics, and I used to be so eloquent. So this is. It's so kind of frustrating sometimes.
I bet. Well, you were explaining to me. I can't imagine. We'll get to that farther ahead. So kind of let's go through. Can you kind of explain to us kind of what happened, medically?
Yep. So 7 years ago, I actually had 4 strokes and 9 brain surgeries. At work, I worked in Dallas.
You said 4 strokes and 9
brain surgeries, yeah. And I actually died and went to heaven, came back in a wheelchair and nonverbal. And I've had to reteach my body everything from feeding itself to walking to talking. Everything. So
That's so crazy. One of the things that you told me about when you first said it was how when you, and we're going to dive into I don't know if anyone caught on to that though, but you said when you died and went to heaven, because that's what I want people to understand. That's what I want people to hear about. But when you said when you did come back, how your brain like was still there, like you could still think the things, and then when you would try to move your body or you would try to, it just like wouldn't work, right?
yep. So actually, one of the symptoms of my injury, I've done so much work and God's good to have healed and stuff, but it's like ataxia, which is like uncoordinated movements.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I would like open a can of Coke, even though I don't like soda, but that's an instance. And I would try, it was too weak, and I would end up like slapping someone. And like the speech obviously was like nonverbal. So I didn't know like ASL. I knew like A, B, C, D. I don't know the rest.
Yeah.
And I kind of made up my own stuff because I'm like, I had no idea. I would just point and gesture.
Oh my gosh.
But my face is, always was really animated, but it really had to become so because that was how I
Communicated, right?
spoke. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting to be in that state. Yeah, because people think you're not there.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense. My parents at first were, when they weren't judgmental, they believed, obviously, but they didn't know the extent of the damage. So, like, they were like, is he
Yeah.
cognizant? He is alert now, so that's good, but
Can he understand what we're saying? Is he really like, yeah. And I honestly wondered that too. You know, I wasn't sure if when you come out of having a stroke, when your whole body's not moving, I was kind of wondering, is your brain not working either? You know?
not necessarily. So actually, a good friend of mine, her mom is a teacher, and one of the kids actually, I'll get into that. Your brain, when damaged or having differences, has a lot of correlation with like people on the spectrum or people with like different deficits.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, what I'll get to that, but you can write or type super good. You just cannot make your body
Yeah.
speak or whatever, communicate. And so she had like a student, and I believe they were like nonverbal and having issues, and everyone had really given up hope on them. But she was like, she remembered my story because I'm good friends with her kid. I went to, anyway,
Yeah.
long story, I'm trying to cut down.
You're good.
But she put a piece of paper and like a pencil in front of him, and he wrote just fine. And they were able to have full-length conversations, and just that made such a huge difference in
That's
my
really
life.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's cool. I never, the correlation between like when you say being on the spectrum, like almost like the autistic, like kind of.
Yeah. So people think that just because speech and cognizance are in different parts of the brain, people don't know that. So like your speech, area and your thought area are in different parts. But my friend actually, shout out to Laura, is a disabilities broker based in Wisconsin now.
Yeah.
And she actually ran like a sensory room.
Yeah.
And I visit her often. I love Laura. But I was able to decompress. At first, when I was having a lot of sensory overload issues, I could go in that room and like decompress and write and all sorts of stuff. Focus, yeah.
That's really cool. That's so cool. Is this all stuff that you ever really knew before? Is this all kind of things that you learned?
It's stuff. Well, I didn't know. For instance, like your senses are super heightened. I have like supersonic hearings. I've mastered that for the most part, but for a long time I could hear through walls and stuff.
That's why these microphones. That's why the headphones were so loud to you.
Like, oh, it's so
sorry. You're like you read that. I'm like, man, it's not that loud. But if you have extra good hearing, then they would be loud.
Well, even at Rangers games, we go to like a suite, and I just stay inside. I'm like,
because it gets too loud.
Yeah, every once in a while I can go outside, but I'm like,
That's so funny. I love your personality, dude. Sorry, it's just fun to see you. So check this out. This is what I really want to dive into, you guys, because there's a lot of times in our faith we wonder, like, man, is this, real? Are we really, in this faith because of what's going to happen afterwards? Or do we have faith that we're going to go to heaven? Is heaven even real? And when Jais kind of explained to me, and I'm about to hear it for the first time too, and I literally have chills right now because I'm excited to hear. He says that I'm just going to let you explain it. So kind of what happened? What did it feel like once you were officially, dead?
Obviously, I mean, when no one thinks they're going to die. I mean, I was 27. I never would have thought that. But the first thing is like the peace. Like the peace is so soothing. I mean, that sounds like very basic and like materialistic, but I'm like, no. It like soothes the very soul there. It's like being permeated in it. Like the best I can describe for those of us here, well, others who have not experienced that, I wouldn't say me because I have. It's like when you take the biggest and best nap of your life and you wake up and there's no crushing sense of obligation or fret or fear or issues with like, oh, the world is crazy, and like that's how it is. I mean, that's pretty minute compared to the real thing. But then of course here you have the weight, the pressure of the world comes back. So really you have like 5 minutes of okay, and then it's a mess. But when you're there, the peace. I mean, because there's no wrong, there's no suffering, there's no evil, there's no ill will. There's nothing but love and forgiveness, and it's like unconditional. Our love here is conditional. Yeah. I mean, people say unconditional, but I'm like, that's not feasible in humans. Only God can love unconditionally.
That's good.
Yeah, I don't think people quite understand. I'm not condescending, but our love is very based on, like, for the most part, factors, or like there's different variables as opposed to God's love. Even if you just shot someone in the face or did this or did that, I mean, God, if you repent and call upon His name, He say, "Hey, welcome back." So I just remember heaven.
Do you have a visual feeling of what it was?
Yeah, so like when you get there, obviously even if someone had just stabbed you or clubbed you or like curb stomped you, there's nothing but love and complete forgiveness for them, because you honestly are like, that's behind me now. I don't care. Like, I just want you to know what I know, experience what I experience. And I remember, I wouldn't say pity exists there, but I remember having empathy for certain souls who I knew would not be there. And so that was interesting. So, like, visual stuff, I know for a fact that the Holy Spirit was, like, putting His hands over my eyes so I could only see glimpses. Because if I saw the real thing, I wouldn't want to be back. It would be too much to be back here. It's painful now, but I truly believe, but the best visual I can, I guess, give people, well, there's light right here. It's bright. But the light there, the ethereal light, is nothing like this world. Nothing is pure and just not garish and harsh. It's soft and gentle and just pure. And there's nothing like it on this earth, but that's the visual I remember.
That's awesome. So it's almost like like everything has love in it, even like the light, right? Like that's really cool. So it's not like the light where you look at and it kind of hurts your eyes. It's like a welcoming light. It's probably still bright, and I'm just guessing. You just have me excited.
It really is.
You have me excited about that. So what's cool about this is I had a guest come on about a year ago. Awesome dude named Jason, and he had a heart attack and was out for a few minutes. And he said he experienced complete darkness. And what's crazy about that is it pushed him in his relationship back to God. 100%.
So different. Actually, that movie coming out soon. I forgot what
Afterlife or something. Yeah.
If you hear this Afterlife, we're going to see it.
Right.
But anyway, like different experiences, like they record like atheists and agnostics.
Yeah.
And their experience was radically different
right?
than mine, thank God.
And his, though, but he acknowledged the fact that he felt there was something and it was just pitch blackness and dark, and it pushed him into a relationship with God. And so he was like, man, I think that, God gave me that opportunity to be able to get right with him now.
I think it's important when everything is forgotten. It's hard sometimes to hold on to that, but I have to thank God brought me back. Honestly, I'm a very, very small portion. Honestly, probably 99.999% of people don't survive
what you've been through. Oh yeah, that's what you were telling me earlier. Like you said, you had 4 strokes and 9 brain surgeries.
Yeah.
And then you literally described it. This is your terms, that your brain was what? Did you say it was just?
It was like dog food.
Yeah, like your brain was like, and now, I mean, I know you think that you have a slight speech impediment. Not really. It's not really bad. By looking at you, you can't tell there's anything wrong. Nope. And then
actually, it was a lot different when I was like hunched over on a walker, on the cane. And people kind of expected the speech issues because obviously physical speech will not. But now that I'm more independent and normal, people.
Yeah. I think what I take from it is that God had a purpose for you, and he almost probably wanted you to experience that, to be able to come back. And, that's how God works, through people and, miracles through people, to be able to like spread the gospel and tell people, hey, what I experienced. Because that's a good way, for God to get people to pay attention, and to listen to, what they could miss out on. And that's really sad. So it's cool that you already had a firm foundation and relationship in the Lord going into that. What is at this point, what do you think is your like kind of biggest struggle?
Probably remembering, like, when the world is crazy, I know what says Scripture, don't look to the left or right, look straight ahead. That's the way you walk in it. I'll look up that verse. I don't like to quote verses unless I state the actual one. But I would say, like, when people freak out and fret, I'm like, it's okay, I understand, but you have to remember, this is the blip. I was in heaven for like 5 minutes, and I woke up in the ICU like a month later. Everyone was like upset and crying. I'm like, why are you upset? Everyone should be upset. It's me. I was sent back. But I think, well, it's hard unless you have this experience to remember that. But the very moment you get to heaven, like all these people recently who were slain and all sorts of stuff, the very moment you get to heaven, it's gone. I mean, your old life is done. You don't care, because we are promised an eternity of that just love and blessing. And we cannot grasp that. We can grasp like 76 years, 100 years.
Yeah. Eternity doesn't make sense in our brain.
No.
Another thing that you had mentioned, and not to go back, but another thing you had mentioned is you felt like you didn't make it to like the actual, through like the gate part of heaven. You just kind of got to, like, you called it the waiting room.
Yep. So I know if I actually went through the gates, I mean, this is my experience. I assume judgment, the gates, etc. Or even the gates for the final. I have no idea how it works. I mean, obviously, I didn't enter in. I know for a fact that if I witnessed that, what just like Aslan's country in Narnia, once you cross over, there's no going back. And I know, like, if I had crossed over,
You probably wouldn't have wanted to come back.
I mean, it's very hard now, but I definitely wouldn't have wanted to come back. But I have heard tales of like people who experience like heaven, who have come back and like fallen into like depression or.
That makes sense because you saw how amazing that was, and now you're having to live in this world of. Oh, that's really good. So let me think. Now that where you're at in life right now, and I don't mean to like go into something that's kind of like, but you feel that you're talking about what's your next steps? Like, what are you planning to do?
So I have stuff in the works. I mean, you can plan only one, but obviously God has the final say.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, but I'm to the point, I've rehabbed so much and done so much work that I want to work. I mean, I have degrees. I'm experienced. Like, I used to be coordinator in healthcare. I have so much going for me and so much drive that it's very daunting to even apply for like basic jobs. Because even if it's unspoken, there is disabled discrimination in this crazy world. Everything is going on. I'm like, no, I mean, I'm not salty about that, but I'm like, so you're telling me even though I have degrees in this background and stuff, because I sound like this.
Yeah. And that's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping to go into. I didn't want to go because you've never come across to me with like a self-pity mindset at all. You know what I mean? Which is really impressive. I think that it could be easy to get into that.
So when I first started, I mean, I never had this issue. When I first started therapy and stuff, there actually was rather a specific patient. I don't even remember much about them, but they were very pitying.
Yeah.
And they were like, there was no deficits. I mean, none. The only issue was like something basic and something easily fixed. I'm over here in a wheelchair, like barely able to eat solid food.
Yeah.
There's people who will never walk or talk or move or any of that again, and you're over there being like the brat. I'm like, no, I didn't like them, but I do find that you can either be salty about that, which fixes nothing, because you're still injured. I mean, yes, it's rough and sucks sometimes, but there's nothing that you can do.
Yeah, especially by feeling sorry for yourself. You just got to keep pushing forward. Can we even bring up the fact that you work out twice a day? Like, this is something, I
tried, yeah. So, once again, this actually is a shout out to Liquory Fitness, which I hope to work for them someday.
That's awesome. I even saw an article they wrote about you, man. It's really cool.
Yeah, so it's on my Instagram, Stroke Survivor Fitness, which is my Instagram. Which I do fitness stuff, but it's very faith-based. But it's Liquory. It's like Take It Off. It's based in LA, but now they have like studios all over the world in the US, and they're growing. But actually, it's like low impact, high intensity movements.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same movement basis. Some moves are like Pilates-ish, but it's way more intensive and focused on going slow. Time under tension, corticosteroid release, which is like targeting those muscle fibers and resculpting and everything. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I'm really proud of you for that. You know, we have people who so many excuses to not work out or why they can't or what's going on, and you just say no excuses.
There's really, so for that even is 50 minutes and you burn calories up to 33 hours afterwards.
Yeah.
So really you only really have to do it like 3 days a week. I do it more obviously, but I mean that's a bit longer even in your program, which I'll have to check out. But I mean, 30 minutes a day and you do work. I've lost 67 pounds, I believe.
That's cool, man.
And then, yeah, I'll have to get some skin surgery, obviously, because I've lost so much weight. But
hey, that's the least of the concern. You know what I mean? Think about how healthy you are. It's really motivational to me to see how you're just have this not give up. You know, you're not going to use this as an excuse. You're going to keep pushing yourself. I think that God has the perfect job for you. And I think that just stay patient, and I'm excited to see, like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Don't try to force it. Just be patient with it, because you're a huge inspiration to a lot of people, and I'm excited to see how your story is going to be able to, like, help other people, man. It's really motivational and inspirational, and so keep pushing with that. One thing that I like to ask everybody is, if you have one piece of advice for, you know, yourself at 16 or a 16-year-old boy, and this translate back to the mentorship, what would a piece of advice be?
So I think I'm trying to not do something other people do, something different off the top of my head.
You're good.
I think it's important to realize that things are rough for everyone, but there's no comparing yourself to other people, because that does not.
No one's ever said that.
Nothing. I mean, once again, scripture is stuck in my head.
No, you're
Isaiah 31 states that whoever turns to the right or the left will hear a voice behind them saying, "This is the way, walk in it." And I agree, you have to keep your eyes on Jesus and faith and just pushing forward. And also remembering we are not our past. I mean,
that's good.
You're not your past. The moment you get in heaven,
that's so great.
It's over, yeah.
Both of those two things are awesome. You're not your past, which is huge. That really hits me, because I have to still remind myself of that.
Oh, yeah, that's Satan, by the way. Yep. God's like, no.
I have to still remind myself of that a lot. But then also, which no one's ever said, is that don't compare yourself. Like, we're all different. God has a different purpose for each one of us. And
which sounds pretty it's true, though. Like, we all have different gifts, spiritual gifts rather, and different callings. And it's important to realize that, whether they be like a motivational speaker or athletic person or a VP, we all have a different role. And just because someone's life is more dramatic than yours doesn't mean it's more important.
That's good.
That's from the movie, but
it's awesome. It's awesome. You could take that and use it. That's great. Cool, man. Well, thank you very much for doing this, dude. You did awesome. Like, everything you said was impactful. Do you feel like your encounter with going to heaven and seeing what heaven felt, has that built your faith?
Oh, absolutely. So the longer I'm here, the harder it is to remember. But the good thing is I have it recorded and reminding myself daily, or even moment by moment. But that's really helped. I mean, everything is spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
But because I'm able to remember that I have that promise, I have that calling in me, I'm able to understand and know the best is yet to come.
That's so good. And I'm going to end on this, but I want y'all to catch what Jais just said. Sometimes we beat ourselves up because we fall off in our walk with the Lord, or we look left or look right, like you said in that verse. Don't beat yourself up for that, and just get back on track. Jais has actually literally seen and felt what it feels like there, and he still says that he, has to remind himself about that, to not fall off left and right. So just remember, don't beat yourself up if stuff falls off, or if you mess up, or just get right back on track.
And the grace is in the letting go. Yeah. So, I mean, everyone has made mistakes, or no one is perfect.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily put them on social media or this or that.
Well, that's good.
For those of us who are older, I look young, but I'm 35. So I was around, before cell phones and stuff, Google. But, just remember, once again, just because someone's life is more dramatic than yours doesn't mean it's more important.
That's so good. Let's end on that, man. Look, I want everyone to remember that you're loved and you're forgiven, and there's nothing you can do about it. Thanks, Jais.